When you say I, what is that? Is that your body? Is that your mind? Is that your feeling?
It's all of that.
And that's what makes our mind unclear.
The suffering comes from us when we look at what we believe is ultimate truth, but really is relative truth.
Yes. If we know it's relative, our attachment will be much lesser. Anything that is strong in your emotion, so it will stay in your mind.
You become attached
Yeah.
to it.
So you don't even have to wait next life. It can be in the next few hours, you can have it in your dream.
What can we learn from this suffering before death or after, per se?
Even someone is on the deathbed, dying, terminally ill, and you are visiting, meeting. There's no guarantee that this person will die first. Who knows who will die first?
That is true. Hi, it's Sherry. Welcome back to my channel. With there's so much uncertainty in the world, I believe many of us feel that we're anxious, we're at a loss, or just unable to feel happy or the joy of life. I felt that a while back and had embarked on a journey to seek answers from psychology, neuroscience, philosophy, and maybe spiritual teachings. And throughout the time, many of you have joined me on this journey. And today we continue this journey with a very special guest. And I want to make sure I pronounce his name correctly. It's Taram Jatul Rinpoche. Did I say it right?
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Welcome, Rinpoche.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have you on the show because I haven't had a chance to really speak or ask about questions I had about spirituality, this up close in person. And I want to preface it by saying I think I'm a very open-minded person. I hope I am. I'm open to all the spiritual teachings and different religions, but I myself don't belong to any association. So the questions that I ask will probably be more basic, and I may ask questions on behalf of people of different religions or people who are just very interested in Tibetan Buddhism. So I do want to preface it that I'm a muggle, so to speak. So can we start off by understanding what Tibetan Buddhism is and how is that different than other types of Buddhism?
So, first of all, I would like to say that the teaching of Buddha and its interpretations, after that, to me, it looks like sometimes I even think whether it will fit in so-called religion category or not. Yes, it's spiritual. Yes, it's also very strong on philosophy and logics and epistemology, But what it is basically it talks a lot about the mind. Everything is about mind, Mind, emotion, perception, logics, and what happened with the mind when you, look at things in a different way. So I usually don't feel we're talking about the wholeness of Buddhism when we say it's a religion. This is, it's always in the back of my mind. So this is a great place to talk about Buddhism, I think.
Yeah.
Because it is not, in my view, constrained by so-called religion.
Right. The construct of religion. I think a lot of times we look at Buddhism or the essence of it, and now in the Western world, people are more accepting of a lot of Buddhist practices like meditation and understanding the philosophy of being more self-aware or letting go.
Right.
So there is more research, or whether in neuroscience, psychology, that supports a lot of the practices that Buddhism has really tried to reinforce or encourage over the years. So I do agree, when I studied Buddhist scripts, I think it's not really being religious, but rather a way to find a way of life or an attitude, a teaching of how I can see the world. Right. When I was younger, I was very drawn to Buddhist philosophies, and two things that's was really on my mind was one, Buddhism talks a lot about suffering. The teachings all mention suffering. And when I was younger, I didn't really understand it as much because life, I thought, was about pursuing happiness. So instead of talking about how to pursue happiness or how to get to happiness, it's more talking about how to live or learn from your sufferings. Of course, now that I'm older, I'm able to see without suffering is really, you can't avoid it. It's part of life. And so it's becoming more clear to me, but still, I'd love for you to expand or talk a little bit about the focus on suffering. And the second thing I was always quite curious about was the idea of letting go attachments. But that also contradicts to what our society teaches us, which is pursuing actively, not being passive, but aggressively, assertively pursue something, grab onto something. Do you think there is contradiction there, or really it's just the yin and yang and part of it? So these are the two things I really wanted to ask you about.
Sure. So they go together, I think, letting go related questions that you have and the suffering, right? So first of all, again, suffering, yes, but there is differences between the word the Buddha used in Sanskrit, which is dukkha,
Dukkha.
and the suffering that we have, which is translation of the word dukkha in English. Now let's think about this word first. Dukkha, the first part of the word, du, means not good, bad. Okay? Ka means the empty. So this is connected with the wheel. When you have, in the old ancient time, you have cart, the oxen cart or horse or, there's cart. So you sit in the cart, so you travel. So imagine that the wheel, made of wood probably at the time, imagine that empty part is not really a perfect circle. That is like a bad empty. You see, you have bad
dukkha.
empty, dukkha, right? Now, when you travel with that, imagine what happened. If the wheel is not completely
it's not
balanced,
stable,
it's going to jump up and down, right? So that's what it means, dukkha. Bad ride, actually, it's a difficult, challenging, distressful. All these are part of that.
It doesn't fit smoothly.
It's not smooth. The life is not smooth. Life is distressful. There's lots of up and down. That's what dukkha is. So suffering, yes, but I think the meaning is broader. It's not very serious, like one thing, suffering. So there's many variations of sufferings, I think. We have different image of the word suffering, but dukkha is a very broad. So it's not always suffering.
It's always kind of painful, like you're being tortured.
Right.
I see what you're saying, because suffering could be you're being tortured. That's suffering. But then sometimes we say we suffer a minor mistake or suffer a little bit of headache. So that's just minor distress. So it's not always so painful or huge.
That's right. Yeah. So that's dukkha, the suffering. Where does that come from? It comes from the attachment. So the teaching says that what Buddha said is one has to learn how to let go, how to detach oneself from what? Now this is an important question. Now there are different interpretations. Are we talking about detaching oneself from the works and people and relatives and everybody? Or is something different? My understanding is, it's not really about these things. It's detaching from your attachment. That the mental part is the mind part. If you completely ignore and distance yourself from all this, then what is compassion? Where does the compassion teaching fit?
That's interesting.
Compassion actually brings everyone else closer. To have compassion, you actually have compassion. You're feeling their passion, their feeling, what they're going through. You feel it. That's compassion.
Right.
So it's really about the attachment, because attachment is actually the self-centered, accordingly. You're self-centered. So you are maybe liking others because you want it. It's not because they need it. You know, you're giving it, you're liking, right, somebody or something, not because it is beautiful or it is great, but it's a service to this ego. So if you can detach, you can let go the ego part, then loving others, caring for others is not a problem. That's a great thing. That's an activity of compassion.
Can you speak a little bit about your definition of the ego when you say we detach ourselves or not just focusing on the ego?
There's two kinds of egos. One is innate. So you're born with that, no matter what's your background. Language doesn't interfere with that. You're born with that. So there's that kind of ego. And that ego is the most basic, raw ego. And it is very strong and very stable in a way. But at the same time, it is very unclear, blur. You don't know, but you believe it's there.
Can you give us an example of what might be? You can't see it, but you believe and it's there.
That I'm here. That belief. That I. When you say I, what is that?
A sense of self.
That, yes. What is that self? The sense is fine because that's part of the mind that is thinking, believing. But believing on what? What is it? You're not saying that I'm a thought, right? You're saying I am, that I. What is that? Objectively, what is it? Other than a belief. Is that your body? Is that your mind? Is that your feeling?
It's all of that combined.
All of that, when you say all of that, that's what we normally believe. And the problem with that is when you say it's all of that, that means you're not able to pinpoint what is that. You're just, when you cannot really think, then you just lump sum, you put together. And that's what makes our mind unclear. You cannot pinpoint. You cannot, because when I'm a singular, I'm a one, we never think that I'm many. I'm one. So if there's a one and you're saying all of that, that means many. So where is it? Which one is it? So when you go closer, the reality and our belief are two different things. So that's why it is called ignorant in Buddhism. You believe something that is completely different from the reality. So it's known as ignorant. So that's the source of all the problems.
So that's the innate ego.
That's the innate ego. The one is, it's a more philosophical ego. So that's something human have. It's intellectually layered by intellectual thoughts. So that comes from your religion, your culture, and so. The philosophy that you learn. So that's the second type of ego. And it actually solidifies the earlier ego. And then now, according to Buddha, that makes even worse. Your ego even worse now. So religion, according to the teaching, the Buddhist teaching, the original, the nature ego is already very blur. And now religion, philosophy, culture, all these things actually colored them, even make it even worse now.
So make it more complex for us to decipher and understand.
Unnecessary things. It just put extra layers on it. So one needs to, the practice here is don't believe. Seek and find yourself. So only when you watch, seek, and find first with the logic and analysis, then probably you can go beyond that later on. Find it out yourself. That's actually the teaching of Buddha. That's the only way that you can help yourself.
It's interesting because we talk about understanding yourself. And I think in psychology, there's a lot of that, right? Understanding self as a concept. I think what I am not struggling, but what I'm trying to digest is the understanding, the path to understand self, to sort of take out all the layers that's covered by the intellectual ego, to go down to the basic innate ego and then peel that off as
Exactly.
well. But at the same time, the path to understand self, it's still focusing on self. Isn't it that in and of self, focusing on your ego?
This
Or
one,
am I going in circles?
no, I think you asked something very important.
Okay.
In the ancient time, people rub dry, some particular strong hardwoods, and then after some time, the smoke will come out, and then slowly it becomes fire, right? So you make fire out of wood, but that very fire will burn the wood, right? Fire comes from wood, and that fire burns the wood. When you ask the question, it reminds me to explain this thing. So we use our analysis and ask, seek, and find out what is the reality. And then, I'm analyzing about I, right? We're peeling off all the layers of this I, but at the same time, this I is doing it. This is your question, It doesn't
I am
matter.
doing it with the filter, with my ego.
Yes, it doesn't matter. It's just like that. When it is on the right path and it's the right analysis and you are able to do it without coloring, you are actually asking, you are not answering, you are imposing anything on it. You are not expecting anything, right? It has to be very unbiased when you do this analysis. And then when you do it, even you have a belief that I'm doing it, it doesn't matter. It's just like that, the wood and fire example.
It's like in chemistry, every chemical that participates
Yes,
in it
yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
has a reaction, but trying to be detached and be a non-reactive chemical, so to speak,
Right.
when digesting or peeling off the layers is ultimately the practice.
Yes. It's not about who's doing it. It's about what you're doing it. Right. It's whatever you're analyzing, you're with it. It doesn't matter who's doing it right now. You're trying to find out what is I.
Interesting. That's making sense to me. I think I need some time to digest it. But you did talk about compassion. We talked about detachment, because if you're completely uninvolved, you think you're not part of this world. It's not what the Buddhist teaching is either.
Right. Yeah.
Right? It's being in it, but be detached to your ego.
Yeah. There's two parts actually. So when we fly in the airplane, they give you instructions. If there's any problem, you have to wear the mask and so on, right? It says wear it yourself first before you help your
Yes.
child.
Yes.
This is what exactly I think the Buddha said. So there's a part you have to detach from things to gain some control of your senses and your mind. And you're not doing it just for yourself. You should always remember that's not the end. When you gain control over your senses and mind, is not the end of it. That's actually the beginning of, working for others. So that's where compassion comes in. But if you just say compassion from the beginning, how much can you help actually? You may trap in that. There's many examples. Some people try to help and go to place where there are a group of people who take drugs. They want to help. And at the end, the person who went there to help start to take drug, right? So the person become one of them. So when you try to help, you need something so that you can really help. You don't become part of it, but you are able to help them. You need some training and some wisdom and knowledge yourself That
Right.
is something. That's like wearing yourself first.
Right.
And then
right.
help the others.
Right. I mean, this is fascinating because I do talk a lot about that in self-care, but I didn't think that's what Buddhism was about either. It's great to hear that because I do think people mistake compassion with altruism in a way. So I do see people buy into the fact that I have compassion for all without caring for self. And that caring for self or putting the mask on first on myself not necessarily means you don't have compassion, but it's a self-centered or selfish. And so when you talk about compassion, it has to come from a place of abundance. You have enough, therefore it spills out and it comes naturally, as opposed to, hey, I'm doing it for you. I'm being altruistic. I do see people talk about gaining karma that way. Like if I do this, if I donate all of my money, if I give my life to all the people around me, then maybe I could be better in my next life, or I could live better later on. Can you speak a little bit about compassion versus altruism and people who feel like their compassion is really just given it all? The intention is to help others and put self last.
Right. So again, I think here normally we focus on the materials, right? But maybe it's more about the mind. It doesn't mean that one has to be rich before you give something. It means that actually you can give from the beginning, but you wearing the mask yourself first. It means that your mind is in more control. Your mind is better prepared. Your intention is more correct. Intention is pure. You don't have too much attachment to the material things. So giving things from the beginning to the others, even when you don't have much, is also a way to work with your attachments. It's two things. There's a both practice going on. One is to help others. The other is to help yourself. You're working with your attachment.
But I think I'm not really talking about just materialistic things, but just generally the resources you have. Your resources could be money, but a lot of times it's your energy, your time, and your effort.
Your skills.
Your skills or whatnot. Just generally, I see a lot of people being altruistic, like living for somebody else, hoping that everyone around me can live a better life, but not really caring about self. But as I'm speaking that, I can also see how servicing others can help you gain joy. I think the problem is sometimes the people with the good intentions saying, I want to help you, not necessarily understanding if that person needed to be helped or if that's that person's journey. So when we want to be compassion, does it always require action? And if it's action, should we check with others to see what it is that they require? If our compassion or our caring or our resources might be a burden for them. How do we find that boundary? And then we have people on the other spectrum who are like, I'm compassionate about everyone, but I'm not doing anything about it. I speak as a compassion person, but my action doesn't follow.
Right.
So I guess my question is, what is compassion? And how can we give it? What can we do so that it benefits the world as opposed to adds more drama or karma to human relations?
So there's so many things there, I think. First of all, I wanted to say the compassion needs wisdom. That feeling must be led by wisdom. If your compassion is not surviving, not lasting, then that is a good sign that you don't have enough wisdom for the compassion. Because the right compassion, the healthy compassion, is always guided by wisdom, and it can last forever.
It doesn't take effort to sustain it.
Yeah. If compassion is stressing you, and then it's not lasting, then there is some lacking. Something is lacking there. You want to go somewhere, but you need to know how to go. So you need eyes, the eyes of the wisdom. And once you have that, then you kind of solve so many problems. And you know when to act, when not to act, which way you can help. Like you said, there are many ways. Material is one, but maybe you can help other ways. What is your specialty? You can maybe help best through that way.
How do we gain that wisdom to know the difference?
Sometimes you learn from others, sometimes you learn from yourself.
Life experience will probably bring you some wisdom if you can reflect, right?
Right.
And I think that's why we look for spiritual teachers to have that guidance, because we all know that wisdom is should be our North Star. It's what should guide us, but not really know how to get there or how to internalize it.
Wisdom is within, all around us all the time, actually. Main thing is we just have to pay attention and watch and be mindful. So it's not one-time wisdom. Wisdom just builds up slowly.
Right. Yeah. Big topic I'd like to embark on and talk about is death. I watched one of your videos and you talked about the only thing that's constant and unchanging is that we all die, which sounds a little gloomy, but at the same time, it is a fact.
Right.
What can we learn about death from a Buddhist teaching? Is there a reincarnation? And do we get a choice? And how does that work?
So death is a fact, right? It's the result of the birth. So since we are already born, so it's a one-way traffic.
That's not that we think that's not a choice. We're just here.
But the choice that we have is how we live and how we die. So if is not the question, but how we handle this thing, that's something we can learn. And many people try to avoid that topic, run away from the death and dying. It doesn't help by avoiding. So knowing about it more ahead of time is helpful. First, actually, if we live as a good person, we'll have less suffering at the time of dying. If we, live in not a very good way, and then we have more regret. So that's one thing. That's an important part of it. And then if we have less attachment, I've been talking about that part earlier, then you have less suffering, less pain and less suffering at the time of death.
I'm curious because at my age, I've seen or known at least a few deaths. There are a few things when I think about death. Is how fast you go is really how lucky you are. If you can go in your sleep, that is really the best, because I've seen a lot of suffering beforehand. There are two kinds of suffering. One is your physical body is suffering. There are a lot of resuscitations, or your illness is dragged out for a long time.
Right.
The other, I see it's a suffering of people around you. The person dying may or may not be aware of it. Could be Alzheimer's or dementia, but also drags out for a long time. And it's very hurtful for the people around them. And of course, there's also sudden deaths that people around them, the families and loved ones, are not prepared for it. I can't help but feel like all of this is trying to teach us something. Can you tell us a little bit more for the people who have loved ones going through it, or who have had loved ones gone through it? What can we learn from this suffering before death or after, per se?
When we see this situation, right, we should look at ourselves. We should put actually in a same level, same category, right? Even someone is on the deathbed, dying, terminally ill, and you are visiting, meeting. There's no guarantee that this person will die first. Even you're very healthy, you're visiting, but who knows who will die first?
That is true.
So normally the impression we give is that we're good visiting. This is, weak and sick, and so we have compassion towards so and so. It's like looking down on somebody. But actually, I think based on the teachings, it's important that we should put completely in the same level. I'm visiting right now. I'm able to visit. I'm so fortunate but it doesn't mean that the person will die first. I think we need this kind of attitude, and anything comes from that mindset. It's also comfortable for the other side.
Yes.
And also it's a learning for yourself.
Yeah. I think at this age, death is not what's scary anymore, but rather what happens before a little bit. Like I said, I've had relatives who had dementia or Alzheimer's, and that period of just unable to control or unable to remember or in a state of disarray, like being wrong place or accusing people of different things. I've seen that dragged out. And I always wonder, what is that supposed to teach us about life? Why, as human beings, do we have certain diseases? I guess you can be broader. Just why do we have certain types of sufferings? What is that teaching us or teaching the people around them?
Mm-hmm.
And are these people themselves suffering? I guess we will never know unless we're in that state.
This is connected with so-called karma. Karma and results of karma. So everyone is different, individual. But one thing I want to say before that is death and dying. I think the dying part is maybe more. Maybe you may say that I'm not afraid of death, but maybe dying part is fearful. I think death is a great loss for the family members, but the one who passed away, he passed away, so
he already passed. He doesn't know.
Yeah.
Right.
But before dying or in the process of dying, that person also go through all this suffering, because for him or her, losing everything that they don't want to lose, right? There's suffering. And I think no matter what kind of, it's quick, sudden, or, very protracted dying, whatever it is, at the end, dying is still dying. And I think even you have dementia or whatever, you still have to stop your breath. So you still have to go through the real physical pain, I think. Even you don't have mental memory, you go through that pain. But nobody can tell for sure, because nobody came back to tell the story, right?
And I'm scared because you mentioned pain. I always imagine drifting off as something that's peaceful and painless.
I'm not sure, but my understanding is probably not. But there's up and down, and you still have to, something very strong will end your breath.
Okay. That sounds a little scary. Can I ask something that's like not very spiritual? Is it worse than childbirth? Because if it's not, then I'm okay. Or is that the most excruciating pain?
According to teachings, yes, it is very
Lordy. Okay.
painful.
What is the teaching of understanding what we go through when we die? How can that help us live a better life, you think? So you said less suffering.
Mm-hmm.
But you meant less suffering like when the act of dying, there's less of suffering then?
I think suffering is mostly mental, both in terms of the depth and breadth, or in quantity and quality, right? There's a pain, but our mind make it worse than what it is. So this part also is normally, we all have this. We think this is the last one, this is the end. When something happened, we think, oh, that's so bad, it will now never happen, it will never go back to the original place, back to where it was. And then you make it really worse, like end of the world. And then you feel that way, then you have more suffering. In reality, maybe it's not like that. It's much simpler, much straightforward. And even that bad one, I'm not talking about death particularly, I'm talking in general, the suffering. Things are impermanent. It changes, right? The good thing about bad thing is that it is changeable. It is impermanent.
So it doesn't last.
It doesn't last. So one should not feel that bad.
No, I was just thinking, because you talk about suffering, and I want to go back to, we talked about suffering in Buddhist philosophies. And it just occurred to me, like in psychology, a lot of times when we're depressed or we're upset is because there's a discrepancy between what we think life should be versus how we really feel about it. Right? We think life should be like social media, Instagram, all perfect, everything flow. And when we don't feel that in our lives, we get upset. And then it occurred to me, there's so much talk of suffering or just discomfort, whether minor or major, in Buddhist teaching, is sort of setting your expectations right. Because once you have that expectation, then you're not likely to see that gap, that unrealistic gap.
Right.
That just occurred to me. That's why we talk about suffering so much. It's setting that benchmark, saying, listen, everyone goes through it and it's so normal. And so when you experience it, it's you realize it's part of life.
Yeah. The teaching basically is talking about the truth, right? And when you know all these negative things in life, it changes the whole view.
Right.
It make you more immune to these problems. When you face them, you know that's what it is.
Yeah. The setting that expectation, right? It's really important. We're jumping back and forth, but I do want to go back to death a little bit, because I think in Asia, we talk about reincarnation a lot. And I think it's in particular in the culture where we live, it's very colloquial to say, I must owe you in your past life, right? This is something we literally talk about. Or like, I must owe this person, 他是来讨债的, right? Or 我一定是上辈子欠他的. Something along that line. Or I'm doing this so I don't have to suffer again in the next life. So I think that's already in our culture, in our vernacular. Like, people don't question you when you say stuff like that. So can we really look into reincarnation? Is that really true? If I owe you in your past life, I will continue to show up in our reincarnations. And do we get to choose our reincarnations? Or is every life a way for you to expand your soul and you have your homework? And until you pass, you'll just come back and take the course over and over again. So I'm curious, because I've heard different thoughts on that.
Right. I think it is what you said. All these things are there. It's not just imagination. And logically, I think it's true, because our consciousness, this needs to go back to the moment we talk about rebirth and so on, we have to logically think about our consciousness. Where does our consciousness come from? When our body, our existence is formed? First moment of this life, right? It started with the life in the womb, right? Where did it come from? Now there's mind and matters. The physical things and mind are completely different nature. One, the physical things, when we say physical things that we can see, we can touch, we can feel, right? We can smell. All of these are considered, according to Buddhist teachings, are forms. So these are our objects, are our five senses, are form. And they are known as matters. The consciousness is completely different nature. It's not something that physical thing can block. No physical thing can block your consciousness. So this consciousness, where did it come from? It's just like the apple came from an apple seed. Apple never came from a chili seed, right? So they have their own genetic line. So what is the genetic line of the consciousness?
So it's a seed that you've sown in your past lives, in your
Yes.
previous
No,
experience.
earlier consciousness.
Earlier
Just
consciousness.
earlier moment of consciousness. So it goes to before the conception. So that's so-called intermediate consciousness in the intermediate state. That's between the death and the birth.
Right.
And that goes back to the moment of death. And then that goes to the earlier life. So there's a mental continuum, just like the apple seed has its own energy, that continues, that can give same kind of things. These all physical things has their own line, and they don't mix each other. The consciousness is completely different things. It has even more reasons not to mix with the physical things. That's why you can actually observe very carefully. You can find some wisdom about this.
How does life begin then? Because if we can trace it back to earlier and earlier, is there an end to it? And how does it begin?
And that is endless. And we are not talking about one planet. When we say life, beginning of life, we should not think just this planet. It doesn't have to be this planet.
Is time linear in this philosophy, in this teaching, or that's also a construct?
So here, to understand the truth, we need to first understand what is called two truths, two kinds of truths, right? The absolute truth and relative truth.
Interesting. Absolute truth and relative truth.
On the relative truth, things work in certain way. Everything has a law. Like apple doesn't give chili as a result, is a natural law, right? For example, water going down because of gravity, that's a law. All these things, the elements, each one has its own law, right?
So that's a relative truth.
That's a relative truth. Now, what relative truth means, we're dealing with that every day. And we think that this relative is ultimate truth. This is a confusion. This is a misconception that we have. When you think relative truth is ultimate truth, then you get suffering.
What is ultimate truth then?
Okay, so now let me use these three fingers right here. And then let's use this ring finger and say, this is long or short. You can say it's long, I can say it's short. We can debate forever.
Right, because that's subjective.
Yeah, you can say subjective. When you say subjective, you're comparing with something else in your mind.
Right.
So when you compare with something, it's a relative. You can say, this is long. Then if I now bring this finger with it, all of a sudden, this is short. Right? It is ultimately unchanging, absolute truth. It cannot just flip-flop. It's going to be one. The truth is one.
Okay.
Right? So
But you talked about gravity as relative truth as well.
Yeah, of course. Water has its water quality, fire has fire quality, the burning quality.
Wouldn't that be ultimate truth?
These are not ultimate truth. Is this water?
Gravity compared to what? Or on other planets?
Yes, you can. Yeah. Because when we think about the truth, we have to think
in the universe.
Greater than universe. Because the universe we think is only a tiny part of the whole thing.
So gravity is only true on Earth.
The degree of gravity can be different at different place. So that's the relative,
And the suffering comes from us when we look at what we believe is ultimate truth, but really is relative truth.
Yes. If we know it's relative, our attachment will be much lesser.
Yes.
We are more flexible.
Right.
When you're more flexible, your mind is more fluid, then you have less suffering.
I understand. So coming back to reincarnation, right? Would reincarnation be the absolute truth or relative?
Still relative truth. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. And you say if we can choose, right? That depends on your power of your mind, where you are, level of the power of your mind. If your mind is very stable, if you have control over your mind and emotions, very likely you have some power over your intention, power of intention. If power of intention is strong, then it is said that one can at least direct, even if it's not very specific, but you can direct, you can put like, these qualities I need to have in my next birth, next life.
Oh, interesting. But you have to train your mind to that certain level where your consciousness is clear. That's similar to how I imagined it.
Right.
In my mind, we go through lives, it's as if you go through school. Like every life you're meant to learn something through relationships or hardships or whatnot. And if you understand it or become more detached from it, you go up a level.
Right.
And then you go up a level and whatnot. That's sort of how I understand it. But if this life I'm stuck in that anger, frustration, or whatever it is, perhaps in a relationship or with that person, then that means I failed this class and I might reincarnate with that person again to sort of redo the course again. It's how I imagined it. I don't know if there's any truth to that or it's relative truth.
So I just talked about the power of intention, right?
Right.
Intention is part of mind, one activity of mind. Now, that's one thing, right? But majority of people are not really guided by intention. It's pushed by the karma, the force of karma. So force of intention is one kind. Force of karma is another kind. So pulling power and pushing power. The intention is a pulling power, and the pushing power is coming from, for most of people, is the karma. So karma push you, karma directs you based on your own creation. So in a way, we are subject to the karma, but the karma is created by ourselves.
Right.
So we are responsible for what we have done. So actually, is when nobody else is imposing on us.
Right.
We are doing something with our intention, with our attachment. So we leave a very deep imprint in our mind, in our conscious mind. And over time, it becomes deeper and deeper, and it stays in our mind. And when something trigger after a long time, maybe you forgot it, you don't remember what you did, but when something trigger to your mind, so all those come back, and then you experience the whole thing once again. So this is called the karmic result. I often say it's like watching a horror movie, for example, right? So if you engage with that a lot, you like it very much, or you're afraid, anything that is strong in your emotion, so it will stay in your mind.
You become attached.
Yeah.
To it.
So you don't even have to wait next life. It can be in the next few hours, you can have it in your dream. You have a nightmare now. So where did the nightmare came from?
It's from watching, from
engaging,
interacting with it.
But you watched many hours ago during your earlier time, your daytime consciousness. Right. Now you're in a very different conscious state. Why are you getting that now? Because it's there in your consciousness.
It's being incepted.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So now it's ripened. So you're going through that experience once again.
So I like what you said, because in psychology, and I think in my other videos, I've talked about people in relationships. When your intentions on, oh my God, I never want to see that person again. I never want to have that kind of boss. When you have that intention, I want to avoid that person. Ultimately, that person keeps coming back into your life, or that type of people come back to your life because your intention so stuck on, I don't want. It's as strong as I want. So it's like I love or I hate. So when you talk about being engaged in the movie, like whether you like it or hate it, that's what you're talking about,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Strong intention, strong emotion towards it,
Right.
then it becomes part of your karma.
Right. Because if you don't want it, if you are trying to reject it, you need something to reject. So in order to reject, you are creating that in your mind first.
You are more attached to it.
Yeah. And that's why, when you have positive karma or negative karma, you experience, you have the result. Yeah. So in order not to have result, you don't create neither karma. You go beyond that, like understanding or emptiness of self. And in that case, you will cease to have karma, and then you won't have the result of karma.
Right, because there's nothing to be attached to, right?
Yeah.
That's an empty vessel.
A sub-comment is that when the teaching is grown as a popular teaching already, then people believe. But when they believe, they don't necessarily get teaching, but they just hear from right and left, and then they just believe in that. So that's the downside of a popular religion. In every country, in every culture, when the religion become popular after some time, people follow but don't necessarily understand. The main thing, you understand certain things, more of the outer, what you do with some of the symbols and representations,
Right.
some of the material things, but not the real message. So only smaller group of people who spend a lot of time learning may get
The
the better
essence.
picture. Yeah.
Right.
So this is one thing. The other part we should also not forget is sugarcoating. When the medicine is so bitter or food has no taste, people don't like to eat it. Right? So if the doctor or the medicine company put some kind of sugar coating, make it more,
More enticing.
more enticing, more interesting, they will take it. But they
So
are not.
it's sort of a hook for you to start the practice.
Yes, they are not giving this sugar to, the main goal is not sugar. The goal is medicine, so they can get benefit from that very bitter medicine. But because of this sugar, they will take it.
So the sugar, or what we tell you is the effect, is the hook that gets you to start practicing what will eventually lead you to the right path.
Yes.
Which is the medicine itself.
Right, right.
Understood.
So there are many teachings that are like the sugar-coated medicine. And there are also teachings that are like medicine, raw medicine. So I think when people say they want to do good things in order to get married and so on, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's still good. They are at least aiming for something good, something better. That is very important for the mind, in our conscious mind. It's building a habit.
Moving towards that direction.
Yes.
But at the same time, not be completely attached to it.
Right. So there's you have to have continuous learning. Yeah.
That's very interesting. I think there are a lot of Buddhist philosophies. As I grow older, I think I understand it more because of my life experience. But when I was younger and trying to understand it, because of detachment, there is no SOP, like 1, 2, 3, 4. I think sometimes we need teachers to dumb it down for us because it's so complex, and its wisdom often is. It's not just yes or no. It's not black and white. It's a complex thing that's with so much multitudes that's hard to say where to begin, where it ends. So I think psychology, some of it, I can see how it helps. I don't want to say dumb it down, but provide some kind of structure to help me understand what the Buddhism philosophy is. And that's what I try to provide here. I hope I got some of it right, but I do see a lot of psychology practices. It's similar to the
Yeah.
Buddhism philosophy.
So,
It just we put names on it, so it's easier for people to understand.
Right.
Before we go, I've learned so much today, and I think my brain is about to explode because there are a lot of things I think I understand, but I feel like I need more time to digest. But I will say, like I said in the very beginning, we live in a time of change, even faster than usual, and a lot of uncertainties. So people are anxious. We understand about detachment, but when you have nothing to attach to, it is scary. So what can you say to my audience? Maybe a little bit of wisdom that's easy for them to understand.
When you have this kind of strong feelings like anxiety, or when you feel it's very scary, right? I think normally we focus on the object related with that feeling, but instead of watching with that feeling, what I suggest to try is to watch at that feeling itself. I'm talking about the right now, the feeling that you have right now, that is bothering you. So really deep in it. Immediately when you first have that feeling, just at that very moment, imagine that there is a small pig and it's coming in your room, and then you don't want that. So you're trying to stop it. It's best to stop at the door, apartment door. If you let it come in first, and then now you don't want it, then you have to chase it everywhere. It can go under your
You have
bed.
to catch it.
Yeah, and it could make a mess, right? It go to kitchen and throw everything and hide under bed, so on. You will have to put a lot more effort. So the easiest thing, the most efficient one, is to stop it at the door. What that means is when you have this feeling, don't wait. Just at that moment, right when you notice that this is happening, then you watch in the very core of that feeling, very center of that feeling, which means feeling, that feeling alone. You see what it is. Without any expectations of what it should be or what it could be, just watch. If you cannot watch it continually, that's fine. After a few seconds, watch again. Use the same method. And after a few moments again, few seconds again, do that again. So that can bring you to the deeper state of mind. And it can bring you, if you really do it, even it's a very negative emotion, negative feeling, it can bring you a very calm state. And then from there, you can have even joy out of it. It can reach to the base and then have positive feeling after that.
Yeah. So that's something I think we can all practice. It's not very easy. I've tried it. Sometimes I think it's easier for me to write it down. Because if I sit there to watch it, sometimes it goes everywhere. Because our consciousness has a lot of freedom to travel everywhere.
I'm not suggesting to sit somewhere and meditate on it. I'm saying this, do this when you are picking up a phone and someone is saying a really bad thing, or when you open your computer and when you check your emails and then you see very nasty email and you're about to reply this email. Things like that in your daily working life when you face emotions, and this is the right time, and don't spend more than like 10 seconds in total.
So just watch it, notice you have the emotions, and then leave it at that.
Noticing is the beginning of the practice, and then you actually go into the core of that feeling. I'm angry, that's the notice part. Then I should not be there. You just focus on the feeling. At the very core of the feeling. It's not about who's angry at whom. It's about the anger itself. I call this third moment practice.
Third moment practice?
Third moment practice. First is context. Second is interpretation. And the third is where emotion comes in, and then where you need to practice. I find it helpful for myself, and also I found many people found it helpful. And I think it's because it doesn't take much effort. It doesn't take much time.
Thank you for sharing that. In organization psychology, one of our teaching is your emotion is data. So this day and age in our society, we are often encouraged to be logical thinkers and not be so much affected by our emotions. But what we're taught is that emotions gives you data to what's happening and what your assumptions are. For example, I notice I'm angry. I'm angry because maybe I think my husband should be doing more. And then I explore, why do I think my husband should be doing more? And that's my basic underlying assumption about the job description for wife and husband. So that's something that we actively try to practice. But really, what we're trying to do is figure out what the problem within the relationship, within the company is. But I can see how this is somewhat similar to what you're saying, is not being attached to emotions, but watch it.
Yes. And actually, I'm not using any logic here. Logic is great. Logic works so good if and only logic is unbiased.
Which honestly, it never is.
Right?
We I think for MBTI, for T people, we think logic is logic, but really logic is relative truth, right?
Yeah. The emotion controls the logic. So when you are emotional, if you use logic to understand and then calm down or anything, no, it won't work. The emotion will bend the logic, and then it will be even more emotional because now it has the reasons, all the reasons that it created to support that you have to be angry.
The logic justifies the
Yes.
anger. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
So that's why that doesn't help. In this method I mentioned, you're not using any logic. You're just watching, and it doesn't need much effort, much
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So that's why it's something worth to try.
Let's all try it. Let's all, when we are faced with strong emotions or really negative ones, it's not to suppress it, but let's watch it and then see what happens. Well, thank you so much,
Oh,
Rinpoche.
you're welcome.
谢谢,
Thank you.
谢谢. And really glad we had this conversation. It'll take me a while to digest it, but I hope everyone had found it as helpful as I did. So thank you again for coming on.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.